real tourist trap. It's a brilliant place to come and spend some time. Lake life is just so relaxing. But just away from that sleepiness and that beautiful air of peace by the various lakes around the area, things get fast and furious very quickly. A huge amount of history surrounds Watkins Glen International. For many years, the site of the American Grand Prix, the US Grand Prix, and often the final and deciding round of the F1 Championship. 3.4 miles, 11 corners. The inner loop in use this weekend, that bus stop chicane, big overtaking potential there. Also, as you come over the rise to the heel of the boot, turn number 8, more than 90-degree right-hander, and there is a chance down into turn 1 as well. Drivers, start your engines. The Lamborghini V10s being fired into light on the pit lane, and the safety car will lead them out. Jeremy Shaw, these look and sound fantastic, and we have a complement of 16 of them, and Jeremy has the grid.
Round 4, this is Lamborghini Super Trofeo. 16th position on the starting grid, having not set a time in qualifying. There was actually an incident with another car, and it broke suspension on the car. They were not able to do anything to the cars during a qualifying session, not even repair it. So no time set. It'll be Martin Barkey who starts the number 67 car for PPM at the back of the grid. Alongside him for Wayne Taylor Racing, car number 10 is William Hubble. On row 7 of the grid, Justin Price making his debut this weekend for Dream Racing Motorsport in car number 21. And alongside him is Sheena Monk for Wayne Taylor Racing in car number 7. Row 6 on the outside, Cameron Castles for Wayne Taylor Racing in car number 33. And then in 11th position on the grid, Mark Proto will start number 88 car for US Racetronics. That is the LB Cup points leader. But on the LB Cup pole, an LB Cup for the least experienced drivers in this championship. In 10th position on the grid for GMG Racing in car number 66, making his debut this weekend, a very impressive one, is Brett Meredith. 9th position on the grid is Pippa Mann, driver number 47 car for PPM. Row 4 on the outside for US Racetronics, car number 17, Brian Thienes. Alongside him, yesterday's winner in the AM category is car number 2 for Dream Racing Motorsport, Ryan Hardwick. And then on the 6th position on the grid, the pole sitter in AM, Damon Oakey, former series champion for US Racetronics in car number 09. 5th on the grid is the US Racetronics teammate Taylor Proto in car number 50. That is the car that won the Pro class yesterday, finished ultimately 2nd overall. Moving on to the 2nd row of the grid, 4th position on the grid is Madison Snow in car number 29 for Change Racing, the championship leader. And for P1 Motorsports, yesterday's race winner JC Perez will start car number 71. That is a leading Pro-Am contender, the overall winner yesterday. Onto the front row of the grid, 2 of the professionals. Jonathan Chicotto, the youngster for Wayne Taylor Racing in car number 1 in 2nd on the grid. And on the pole position, his birthday yesterday, great way to celebrate it, for PPM is a former series champion Shinya Michimi in car number 46.
That's the rundown of the grid. It will be green this time by race control telling the drivers and teams. Jeremy Shaw with the grid, John Hindorf alongside, and Brian Sellers joining us as our guest commentator. A word with him in a moment. Jeremy?
50-minute race. There will be a mandatory pit stop anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes into the race, so basically halfway through, and there'll be a minimum pit stop time from pit in to pit out of 90 seconds. There's a little bit more to it than that, but that's basically what will happen in the middle of the race. So pit stops will be crucial, as we saw yesterday. If you cut short that minimum time, you get a penalty, and that was what caused some confusion yesterday.
Side-by-side start. Brian Sellers leans forward in his seat. This is the time that the drivers make the difference. Pole sitter Shinji Mishimi with Jonathan Chicotto right alongside him, and now the field is under control of the pole sitter as the white Lamborghini Huracan is in the pit lane. What a great sight and sound these cars make in the early morning sunshine. mid-morning sunshine here at Watkins Glen. 50 minutes on the clock. Mishimi is bringing them down at a decent pace, and wait for the green, there it is, and with 1, 2, 3 Hurricanes wide down the outside. The white car looking for a way around. It's 3 into 1, 3 into turn 1, round the outside. Madison Snow's having a little look. Can he make it happen? Oh, gets a little hip check there. These are wide cars, and that's not wide enough for 3 Hurricanes together. Extraordinary stuff on cold tyres early on. Through goes the number 1. Jonathan Cicotto goes through, and Madison Snow goes through into second. A brilliant start by Oliver, but I think there's a puncture. I think there's a puncture for one of the cars that was involved there. It's slowing down.
That's a pulse of the Shinya Mishimi.
Yeah, I think that was a little rub. Might be a puncture on that car. Fantastic start by your WeatherTech teammate there. That was really, really brave driving from all of the 3 drivers concerned. Brian Sellers.
That's pretty impressive for the opening lap, 3 wide through the S's. I know in these cars it's not easy flat through there, and it takes a lot of commitment, but you have to commend those guys for being pretty heads up, all charging hard but being aware of the cars around them.
How much grip do you have or not have early on, because this is a bit of a voyage of discovery from all of them, and Madison put himself really in the place you don't want to be, on the outside.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. None of them have been in that position where you enter the S's this way, so you have to stay committed. And you see the contact right here between the 2 cars. It was earlier, sorry. In turn 1, you saw the tire puff between the 2.
I'm not so sure you would. It looked to me like as you turned into turn
right
2
rear.
there, the left rear I thought it was on number 46.
It was right here between the 2.
Is there contact? Let's have a look.
Just see a little rub there.
Just a little rub.
All right, maybe.
The inside
Watch as he turned into turn 2.
Car got a bit
See
screwed
the left
there.
rear?
Left
rear.
rear, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He definitely had a problem. You could see he had big oversteer in turn 2 as they were going 3 wide, so it happened early.
That. Yeah.
Big crash.
Uh-oh, this is the number 10 car.
William Hubble.
He's not had a great weekend, Mr. Hubble. And that is a full course yellow called by race control. And he's going to pull right into the path of somebody coming round behind him, one of the later cars.
Mishimi.
And that's Mishimi, who's been in the pits.
It's turn 10.
Yeah,
very high-speed corner.
Hubble's not going to get that back to the pit lane. Mishimi will dive into the pits. Now, did Mishimi get in before the pits were closed? He'll need a new tyre and wheel combination. Hubble just loses it coming through 10. He pinched it on the exit at 10 and goes in driver's left.
Yeah, we've seen that so often with inexperienced drivers do that, haven't we, Brian?
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's so easy to sit up here and think you should just open your hands and use all the road on the exit. But, you know, as a driver, you always think you have a little bit left to save it. And for sure, he was trying his best not to exceed track limits.
And what he's also trying to do there, Brian, is get back to the left-hand side of the road to set himself up for that very important final corner, which takes you down onto the start-finish line.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, and it's a short amount of time between 10 and 11. You really have to hustle the cars from driver's right to driver's left, and the combination of all those things, you know, he's probably up on the curb with cold tires, didn't have enough grip to transition the car, and just caught him out a little bit.
That's right. It's just the second weekend in this series, and he didn't even do the first round at Mid-Ohio this season. He did one weekend last year, William Hubble. He's used to high horsepower cars. He's got various vintage cars that he drives at various events around the country, including an Action Express Racing DP Dallara, which I think is actually one of the cars that's won here in the Sailor 6 Hours of before.
Lost that very early in the piece there,
Yeah, you can
Brian.
just see that looks to be just a cold tire issue. Yeah. I think not having the grip up all the way, and it started to oversteer on him before the apex, and it's a fast corner, so if you ask a little bit too much, it can catch you out really quickly, and it's a shame to see something like that this early in the race.
Yes, and it's of course it breaks up the flow of what's going on. Jonathan Cicotto in the lead with Madison Snow second. The first of the Pro-Ams is JC Perez in third. He's having a decent weekend, JC. Finished off the race strongly yesterday.
Yeah, brilliant drive yesterday.
Yeah.
And with the penalty for the on-the-road leader, he came away with his first ever overall win yesterday, JC Perez, after a brilliant first stint by his co-driver in that number 71 car which is Loris Spinelli from Italy. Tremendous performance by those two. Last year JC was the LB Cup champion. It was his first full season of racing last year. Did a good job, and he's worked very hard on his driving over the winter.
William Hubble is out under his own auspices of the crash number 10 Lamborghini Huracan, which is why we're under full course caution at the moment, with the white Huracan leading them round. Brian Sellers is with Jeremy Shaw and me, John Hindorf, in the IMSA radio booth. These cars, these Super Trofeos, were pretty fast, hairy beasts. And this year, they're faster and hairier with the Evo kit. A little bit more downforce, but they've lost none of their top speed. They were cracking over 170 miles an hour through the speed trap in qualifying.
It's amazing what this car is actually capable of. I mean, when you compare it to its not so big sister, the GT3 car, and you think that it's a good car, it's fast, good grip, and yet this thing still does almost another 15, 20 miles per hour faster at the end of the speed trap. So the car you get for the money is amazing, and that's why the series becomes so attractive.
Lap times are pretty impressive as well. Obviously, your GT Le Mans car, GT Daytona car, is a little more draggy. You've got more aerodynamic aids on it, which makes you guys, a little faster through the corners. Is that where you're making your lap time compared to these?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll get our big gains in the braking and the mid portion of the corners. That's the aero grip, little bit better mechanical grip, but obviously their lap time comes in the straightaways, massively in the straightaways.
What's Madison been telling you about driving in this series? Do you talk about it much when you're getting ready for your race at Paul Miller Racing for the WeatherTech Championship?
We do, and I've actually spent a lot of time talking to a lot of the drivers in the series and trying to figure out what it takes to drive these cars. And, you know, I can speak with Madison and Corey firsthand about the differences between the GT3 and this, but it really seems that the Trofeo car takes something special to drive, and it's not easy. I mean, the style is very different to what you would see in a lot of other types of cars, like a GT3 car. And I think you see a guy like Shinya Machimi, who was a past champion. If you look at him, that is kind of a model of what to put your style after. He's very smooth, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, rolls a lot of speed through the corners, doesn't try and stuff the thing in on the brakes. He's very precise.
You never see the car moving around.
No, never. And I think that's important. These things, because they're so big and they have so much power, you have to make sure that you drive it, I'm going to say straight, and that means without a lot of slip angle, a lot of sliding, so that you can take advantage of getting to throttle early and using its strengths, which is the straightaway.
When you're talking to Madison in particular, is there, I mean, he has to jump out of one of these cars in the weekend and into your Paul Miller Racing GT Daytona, the GT3 version of the car. Is there a danger that familiarity between the two cars, because they look very similar, he's going to be in a similar driving position, the controls look very similar, he must have to make a pretty big mental switch then, because the visual clues aren't there. It's not as if you were jumping out of one manufacturing car into another where the engine maybe is in a different place. It's actually quite similar.
It is very similar, and unfortunately for a guy like Madison, he is so talented that in some ways being able to do both is beneficial, because you get extra track time and, you know, you keep to date on the changing and the movements of the track. But you do have to adapt a lot. And one of the things he talked about yesterday was being able to just come off of the brake in this car. And yesterday that car turned the fastest race lap at the end of the race. And he says he finally got the thing figured out towards the end, because it was so different to get to. So, you know, I know this yellow flag is a bad thing for the flow of the race, but right now all the drivers stacked up behind the leader are kind of chomping at the bit, because it's passing is a difficult thing nowadays. So restarts and starts are one of your main opportunities to do that.
Yeah, as we saw yesterday, there was several cars that were clearly appeared to be faster than the car ahead of them, but as you say, very difficult to find a way around because the cars are so fleet on the straights. The braking areas, therefore, are a little bit longer, which gives it a little bit more opportunity, but you go in such a speed, And there's no real slow corners here, so there's not any heavy braking.
And that's exactly right. I mean, when you look at a place like Watkins Glen, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of great passing zones, but they're difficult passing zones. One of the reasons is obviously the aerodynamics in the car have become so good that it's difficult to follow somebody. But then, like you said, the best opportunities to pass are when you come from a slow corner onto a straightaway back into a heavy brake zone. And now we get a close-up look at Shinya's car, and it's maybe even something more than we thought. They're underneath fixing the left front suspension, it looks like, which would make more sense as to the contact.
It will be green this time by. We'll have just under 39 minutes remaining. Really important to get the restart nailed. Jonathan Cecotto with all the pressure on his shoulders, coming back to the green flag. The lights are out on the Huracan safety car.
At 17 years of age, by the way, is young exactly. Jonathan. He's quite a talented, did a super job at Mid-Ohio in the first 2 races of the championship, and he's fast. He raced these cars last year in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo in Europe, had a couple of wins at Silverstone, and he's planning to add some more wins here in North America this year.
The interesting thing for me now, Jeremy, you talked about the pit strategy will be how quick the cars start to come after we go green. Do now with this yellow, do they stretch a little bit further, or do they try and get it done right away in case there is another caution somewhere down the road?
Well, and we've got, 8 minutes of racing or thereabouts before the pit window opens. So that will be the strategy being talked about on the pit walls at the moment from the teams. There is radio contact between the teams and their driver, and at the moment I think they'll probably just want them to get underway. They won't be overloading them with information. Jonathan Cecotto waves left and right in the number 1 at the front of the field.
I would look for some outside moves here into turn 1.
You think so?
I do think so. I think a lot of times it's easy to defend to the inside here.
If you're leading, when do you go on the throttle here?
As soon as you can. You're the leader and you want to take as much advantage as you can. You think, hey, I worked hard to be here. I should be the one to lead to the green.
It's Brian Sellers alongside Jeremy Shaw and John Hindhaugh, and a big foot goes on, big right foot goes onto the throttle. Green flag across the line in front of us, down towards turn 1. A good jump from Jonathan Cecotto. Madison Snow not able to challenge, and a big gap between those 2 drivers and JC Perez, with Taylor Proto right in behind. Then Damien Oakey leading the ARM category, by the way. Didn't get a chance to run through that before we went into full course yellow with that incident for William Hubble in the number 10 car. But a very good restart, Jeremy, for Jonathan Cecotto.
It absolutely was. He got on the throttle very early there, but he's still got Madison Snow right behind him as they go through the inner loop on this 5th lap of the race.
Beautiful run through the S's from Madison Snow, and that's allowed him to take more top speed, Brian Sellers, into the braking area for the inner loop.
I think you can see a little bit of difference in team management right now in terms of car setup, and I think when you look, Jonathan can stretch a little bit once you get into the tight, twisty stuff of the track, but it looks like the Change Racing car maybe runs a little bit less downforce than that car. They are able to pull back on the straightaways a little bit, so maybe you'll see the Change car strong exiting turn 1 through the bus stop, give up a little bit in the middle, and just a different in technique, I suppose, from the programs.
Yeah, just a little visual there. It does look to me like that Change Racing car is carrying significantly less rear wing, isn't it? Less rear wing angle on that car than the race leader number 1.
It's a spec series, although we have 4 different categories of drivers. The cars are all the same. There are some detailed changes that you can do, and the rear wing angle is one of them, but effectively it's all about the nut behind the wheel, and that's why the single manufacturer series are so popular. And I'm hearing about a penalty from the original start, and I think this is going to go against Madison Snow, I'm afraid, Brian, from the original start. I'll wait to see that confirmed on one of our screens.
He certainly made a good jump at the start. It was a pretty slow initial start, And he was kind of trying to make a jump from the second row of the grid on the outside.
Yeah, got through 3 wide through turn 1 in a very exciting manoeuvre. Let's wait to see that confirmed. But at the moment, second place for Madison Snow, that could change.
You can see the cars come through the bus stop. This is one of the greatest shots in motorsports, when you see them come through from 175 miles per hour, jumping the curbs, how much curb they use, how high the car gets in the air. For me, it's one of the best parts of this track.
And the cars are completely off the ground, aren't they, coming through that middle part of the inner loop there?
And it is as violent in the car as it looks from the outside.
And it's hot here today. I mean, for your race tomorrow, it's going to be a workout.
It is going to be a workout. One of the things that people don't understand is how much the heat influences the drivers inside the car. And so if our ambient is approaching 90 degrees inside the car, you'll see temperatures of 120 plus, which the drivers definitely feel that physical fatigue.
It's Brian Sellers, a man who knows Lamborghinis very well and knows the driver of the 29 car, Madison Snow, very well. They are championship leaders in the IMSA WeatherTech Championship, the feature race of this Sahlen's 6 hour at the Glen weekend. Right now, Madison plying his trade in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series, which is being led by Jonathan Cicotto. Snow just 0.8 of a second behind across the line. Those two pulling away from the rest of the field, which is led by JC Perez.
It's pretty interesting for me when you watch the difference between the two cars. You can see Jonathan Cicotto's car on the entry to turn 1 much more stable than, say, the Change Racing car at the moment. You can see Madison Snow is bending the car into the corner a little bit more progressively, trying not to put too much weight on the front, because I think it's probably pretty oversteery compared to that car of Cicotto, who it appears right now is maybe just maintaining pace to give something over to his co-driver.
Yeah, that's certainly a factor during these races. A 50-minute race in total, and the second half of the races, particularly for the Pro and Pro-Am classes for this year, mandatory you run 2 drivers per car. So for the second guy taking over for the second stint, he's got to kind of bed himself in right away, whereas the single driver cars, the guy going out of the pits, he knows already how that car is handling and how the tires are working and how what the track conditions are like.
And that's difficult. I mean, no matter how good you are or what level of professionalism you have, you don't know what the car is doing. So for the first lap, at least a guy that's already in it and has the feeling has some sort of advantage. And it may only be for a lap or a lap and a half, but there is something to it without a doubt.
Just over half an hour to go. One more lap, I think, Jeremy. Maybe 2 for the leaders before the pit lane window for the pit stop opens.
That's right, 1 minute 48.2 was the fastest lap last round, a little bit quicker this time, but still 148.2. Our race leader set in the fastest lap of the race. Those first 2 pulling away a little bit from the 3rd and 4th place cars.
And interesting, I think when we sit and watch the timing scoring a little bit, you can see the lap times between the lead 2 cars are pretty similar, just a couple tenths, but the speed trap difference between them is pretty substantial. You see the lead car of Cicotto has one of the slower top end speeds, but continues to set fast sectors through the tight, twisty, heavy braking corners.
And coming through the S's, that allows him to get a big enough margin ahead of the number 29 car that might be faster on the straight, but he's got too much to make up before he gets to the inner loop.
Yep, that's exactly right. It's a game of give and take. Which one do you want to have? And Watkins Glen is a place that you can do both. You can go for the lap time by low drag, or you can go for the lap time with high downforce.
And that has to be a collaborative decision here, particularly for the teams that are fielding 2 drivers, because it's no point at all having a car that one driver feels very comfortable in it and the other one just can't drive.
Well, I mean, the difficulty is at the end, every driver wants the car with high downforce. It makes it much better to drive over the course.
And ridiculously quick in a straight
exactly.
line, Brian,
Can we have them both? Can we have them both?
No.
There's Brett Meredith, who's doing a really excellent job there in 9th position overall for GMG Racing, making his debut this weekend in a Lamborghini Super Trofeo. All he's done before, he's a member at the Thermal Club down in Southern California. So a private driving club, if you like, with a fabulous state-of-the-art facility out in the desert close to Palm Springs. But it's been a really strong debut for him this weekend.
Can see the battle for the lead continues. Madison just closed in a 10th that lap and set what looks to be the quickest lap of the race, and it's really a battle between these two, both of them kind of going nose to nose and trading fast lap to fast lap. So it'll be interesting how this starts to unfold for the remainder of the race with the next 30 minutes left once Trent Hinmond and Corey Lewis get in and start to battle.
And very consistent lap times by Jonathan Cecotto in the lead. Each of his last 3 laps have been a 1:48.2 something.
Pit window is now open. The leaders have been able to get contact in turn 1, and around goes the 88. The Protos had a great day yesterday, but I'm afraid, Mark, today is not having such a good one. There was contact there.
Sheena Monk, I think, was behind him.
I agree.
They were battling for 12th and 13th positions.
This is a classic turn 1 schmozzle at Watkins Glen, Brian.
It's difficult. I mean, maybe just a little bit of a late move by the 7 car, and I think the 88 assumed that it was going to get slowed down in time, and it's tough. I mean, you can see him start to bend in the corner, trying to give some cues, saying, "Hey, I'm not going to let you have it. Get it slowed down." But just a little bit of contact. It doesn't take much to get the car turned around there.
I think a little bit of an experience too from Sheena Monk there, just being a little bit too aggressive.
And Mark Proto is running again. That's the good news. Sheena Monk will get the drive-through penalty for incident responsibility. That coming through on the race radio. So we've stayed green. The pits are open. This time around, will Jonathan Cecotto come in or will he continue? Oh, it looks like there's some cars coming in, certainly.
He is in, and you can
Cecotto's in.
You can see, I thought there was a chance that he would come in this lap. He was close to his best first sector, set purple in the second sector, so that's a good time for them to come. A good in lap to make the stop.
Now, Madison stayed out and has assumed the lead in the 29 car. Is that a case, Brian, of whatever the guys ahead of you do something different, or will this have been planned out?
Well, I think it probably is a case of the opposite of what the car in front of you is doing. So now what they'll tell Madison is give us 1 or 2 killer laps, try and set the best sectors you can, and let's jump them in the pit lane because it is so difficult to pass.
That's exactly right, Brian. He looked like he might be capable of going a little bit quicker than the race leader, car number 1. So now he's got that clear track and he can take full advantage of it. At least that's the plan.
29 and 66 are going to get time penalties for not being in alignment at the start of the race. Penalty has been confirmed. Haven't seen that on the screens yet, but I've had that confirmed in my ears and by message, so that will be added to the times. 29 and 66 for not being in alignment. I believe that's going to be a time penalty. I'll try and find out. I thought I heard 15 seconds.
That makes this lap even more important. Obviously, you want to try and get everything you can out of it, and he's blue in Sector 2, Madison is, and you can see he's really trying hard. I'd be surprised if they don't pit this lap and do their driver change now, give Corey Lewis an opportunity to go and push.
Yeah, jump start, 15 seconds post-race for 29 and 66, confirmed. I have it now on the screen, so that's a huge penalty for the start of the race. Not for the restart, that was the original green flag.
I think this is a difficult situation for the leader right now as well. If you notice, he came around on what was his best lap of the race, but as he came around this time, they did not pit, and cars are coming out of the pits. So I believe he will have traffic on this lap, and that's not a good situation because Jonathan Cecotto did not have any traffic on his in lap.
Trent Hinmond is having a good outlap as well with a clear track ahead of him in that number 1 car. Eduardo Piscopo has taken over the 5-0, the 50 car, and Damien Oakey. Oh, Damien Oakey getting a pit violation for speeding, plus 9 miles an hour at pit exit, so that's a drive-through for him. KPH, excuse me, I got that wrong yesterday, thank you, Shay. Martin Barkey is leading, but owes us a pit stop, so the top 4 cars have not yet pitted.
Yeah, Martin Barkey in second place. He's done a great job, by the way, in this race. He started last because he didn't get a chance to go out at all in qualifying. Hardly any laps in the dry this weekend for Martin prior to yesterday's race. So it's been a really fine performance to get himself up into second place and turning some very competitive lap times as well.
And to his credit, this is not an easy place to get in and go fast. So if he's able to come up to speed like he has in the race today, it is very impressive.
Yeah. Because he's also driving this weekend in the Intercontinental Tire Sports Car Challenge, and his car will be started on the pole position by his co-driver Brett Sandberg.
So we are halfway through the pit window, and Madison Snow, Brian Sellers' teammate from the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, brings the number 29 onto pit lane just in front of us. The white car then heads towards its pit stop and its driver change. Mandatory pit stop time here for 2 drivers. The idea is so that nobody tries to break any world records in changing drivers. This is all about safety, and also means that you don't have to. Oh, didn't leave it in gear. Car's rolling down an incline there. They need to chalk that up, otherwise the team member who's checking the tyres is going to find that very difficult.
And that's always a problem here at Watkins Glen,
yes,
because it is steady gradient all the way down the pit lane. I remember that from when I raced here. I had a brake failure on the lap and I brought it into the pits, and there was no way to stop the car at all. Literally, I had to sort of lean on the back of somebody else to stop the car in the pit lane. It's a problem.
66 in the pit lane as well.
Looking for the leader now. Actually, we're looking for the number 1 car with Trent Hinman in it to see where it comes out. Compared to Madison Snow and Corey Lewis in that 29 change car.
Yeah, he was last time around. He was about 3 seconds ahead. The number 1 car ahead. Number 1 car ahead of number 71.
Coming round the final corner now, and this is going to be a substantial lead. Oh, well, the white car is rolling.
It'll still be a big lead.
It's going to be a big lead. Getting up to speed. Now the question will be, who comes through in second? Can Spinelli get through as well? It's a bit closer than I thought, and they're going to be side by side, and the white 29's got out ahead. But on cold tyres, Corey Lewis will have to fight. Does he give up the inside? I say no, and he says no. He didn't slam the door there, but he eased it gently closed to discourage the number 1 of Trent Hinman going through. Remember, the 29 car has got a 15-second time penalty to be applied at the end of the race. Leads the race at the moment, but will of course be adjusted back. But this is very important that he stays ahead as long as he can.
Those are tense moments. My heart's beating fast when you watch that. You see Trent Hinman really trying to be aggressive there up through the S's with what looked like it was going to be a really strong move. But great job by Corey to fight him off on colder tires.
Now, he's going to protect the inside here. Is he going to the toe of the boot? Ooh, that was close.
At this point, somebody's got to get on the phone to Trent Hinman and say, Trent, he's 15 seconds behind you. There's no need to stick your nose in there and either damage the car or draw a penalty into the heel of the boot. And Corey Lewis is doing a really good job here. He's not slamming the door. He's going very gently into the apex of all the corners. This time Hinman gets alongside, coming through turn number 9. It'll be side by side on the exit. Hinman just leaning on him a little bit and will get through. Ooh, that's a bit naughty, just jigged back in front, has taken the lead. Corey Lewis doing a good job there to hold off Hinman as long as he did. The problem now is Loris Spinelli is right in behind him.
Yes, having just set the fastest lap on the race, Kane car number 71 last time around. Look to the scoring now. Is he any quicker now on this lap? It's not come up yet. No, not quite, but he's lapping very, very quickly. Is Loris Spinelli, car number 71.
And credit where credit is due. That was a great pass by Trent Hinman. That is not an easy portion of the track to get a pass done, and not somewhere that you would think is a classic passing zone. It's a short straightaway and just a really well executed move. He planned that a few corners ahead.
And of course, he was your teammate at Petit Le Mans last year, so you've seen him in close quarters and interacted with him. He's got his head screwed on. He's a very good driver, and he apparently gives good feedback.
He's very good. He's very good. And I've known Trent for quite a long time, back to where he actually did Team USA. Was the first time that I came into contact with him, and he was a little, I think, 15 or 16-year-old kid. And,
I bet he loves you reminding him of that.
Well, let me tell you, he's not little, and he's not a kid anymore. He's turned himself into a pretty strong young man.
Battle for second place is on the track with the 29 of Corey Lewis. Remember, that car will be getting a 15-second penalty assessed. The other car that got one is the 66 LB Cup leader for being out of alignment at the start of the race. So effectively a jump start penalty assessed. 15 seconds going on to their race finishing times. But at the moment, Corey Lewis wants to try and hold on to that as much as he can, and through goes Spinelli in pretty much an exact copycat maneuver that lost the lead for Corey Lewis on the road.
And you can see the difference between the cars. The Change Racing car really struggling to put the power down. And so you see that is the slowest corner on the track. They use second gear. And the two cars now that have gone past Corey Lewis and the Change car were able to put the power down, good traction out, and be able to actually just make it look not so difficult driving up the inside.
Now let's have a look. Has everybody made their pit stops? And the reason I'm asking that, because the pit window has just closed. Yes, they have. Not hearing anything from race control about potential issues for pit stop penalties.
And Trent Hinman not to be outdone, I would say, and not to let Spinelli get a chance at him, is just set the fastest lap of the race and is really trying to open a gap now.
Yeah, good clean move in the first instance by Trent Hinman to take the lead a couple of laps ago on that number one, the dark satin grey Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo.
And I think what you saw there from Trent, the little weave towards Corey Lewis, was maybe a little bit of a payback from that first move in the S's there, saying, hey, if you think you can muscle me around, you're wrong.
I'm going to get you anyway. See, that's the driver talking.
Yeah,
no, that's the driver.
Someone says we have big egos. I'm not sure.
These are all little subtle hints and communications. You can't have a conversation with the guy in the car alongside you. So it's effectively body language, body English from the car itself. You're just sending a wee message there.
My dad always told me actions speak louder than words anyway, so I think it's better to do than it is to say.
The school of passing messages by car, by Lamborghini, from Brian Sellers in the booth with Jeremy Shaw and me, John Hindhoff, as we're inside the last 20 minutes, just coming down to 18 to go. The class leaders at the moment, Brian Thenis in the 17 leads the AM category, but not by much, because the Miami Blue front end behind him is Ryan Hardwick, who is in second place as they come to complete another lap. So 17 from 2, that's the battle for the AM lead as they cross the line right in front of us here at our IMSA Broadcast Centre.
And talk about a guy that's committed to the sport. Ryan Hardwick right now, I think, is extremely committed. Has put a lot into this, a lot of effort, a lot of time to improve, and you can see he's done a lot of testing. Every race he continues to get better and faster, and right now he's chasing for the AM win.
Is there any substitute, Brian, for track time in a car? I know simulators are part of the answer nowadays, and it's certainly something that I've used when I've gone to tracks that I haven't been to before, cars that I'm not familiar with because I don't do enough driving. But ultimately, out on the track is the place to be.
There is never a substitute, and certainly the simulators now have become a good option because track time is so expensive. So, you know, given track time or no time, the simulator is certainly much, much better. But any driver will tell you that nothing replaces being able to be in the car and driving. And you continue to improve. The more you drive, the more you learn the car, the subtleties, what it takes to make the car go fast. And as we said, right now you can see Hardwick just close enough to try and think about start making a move here.
That's why motorsport is such a difficult sport, because it's not like you can take a ball out into the back garden and hit it with a tennis racket against the wall, or kick a soccer ball around, or throw passes if you into American football, you know, you have to go out on the track and fire up a car and give it a go. Great battle, Jeremy, here in the AM category. First and second together. They're running in positions 5 and 6, well up the order. Let's just remind ourselves that Spinelli is in second place but leads the Pro-Am category. Hinman, of course, leading the race, leads the Pro LB Cup. It is the 66 car on the road, and what does he... Oh, and that is actually still the position because a 15-second penalty for Meredith. He's got 32 seconds on the Price car, the 21 car, in second place. So that actually, as it stands at the moment, that was a start, original start penalty out of line, effectively a jump start, 15 seconds post-race for car 29 and car 66. So where does 15 seconds drop the Corey Lewis car
just
to?
a couple of places, actually.
Right, okay.
Or just one position, actually, just behind Eduardo Piscopo, who's actually closing in on him in the 4th position. Also closing up is a gap between first and second. Trent Hinman of 1:47.3 last time around, but another new fastest lap for Loris Spinelli in the pursuing car number 71. He brought the gap down by half a second on that last lap, did Loris Spinelli in car number 71.
And it looks like he's driving a phenomenal race right now. I mean, that they seem like they have a pretty good handle on the car at the moment. You can see he has good trap speeds, good sector speeds, and that's not easy to do. That's a combination of the team getting it right and the driver getting the most out of it. And it looks like he wants it pretty bad right now, trying to pull in Trent.
Inside 15 minutes to go, and this is where the drivers really earned their money, because they are going to try and wring every last bit of performance out of a car that has already been pushed throughout the race. Now, yes, we've had a bit of full course yellow, so the good news for these closing drivers, Brian, is that the Pirelli tyres will have a little more life in them than they might have expected. If we'd gone full green, they might have... Pirelli make great tyres, they run the whole 50 minutes on one set, but any tyre eventually starts to give up a little bit of performance, and you have to modify your driving style. They might get a little bit more performance here in the last few minutes of the race.
Yeah, that's right. You can see, again, Spinelli pushing hard there, a little bit of a track limit warning for turn 8. But you're right, with the yellow flag in the beginning of the race, the lead drivers or the first drivers only got 4 or 5 time laps. So they handed the car over with a much more tire life than expected. So now these guys can use them a little bit more aggressively than probably what they anticipated.
Yeah, and we'll see that with 2 of the last 3 laps. Spinelli set the fastest lap race. He didn't that time around. He only reduced the deficit to the leader by 1/10 of a second last time around.
Car 7, 0.6 seconds for pit stop violation. 2.9 is going to get a penalty as well. I missed that. And 33 has got one. So has 47, 71. 2.4 seconds, and 46, 2.7 seconds. So that's a whole raft of penalties. Now, I have got a screen that will show me that, so I should be able to give you that in just a moment. I was listening in on race control. As soon as they come up on the screen, I gave you the numbers there, but I will give you the numbers of seconds. Again, this won't show up on the timing and scoring to the left of the screen, but they will be assessed post-race, just like the jump start penalties were earlier on. And so that is going to change the race. Of course, the teams have heard the same radio message that I just have, and that means that they will be able to tell their drivers. I'm not sure what they can do about it at this point. It's not as if you can just magically find a few more seconds. No,
and a penalty there for number 71 car. That's the car that's chasing Trent Hinman for the lead. So that's going to take them out of contention for the lead. Trent Hinman can stroke it home from here, but nobody told him that, because he just said new fastest lap of the race last time around, 1:46.8 for Trent Hinman, our race leader. This battle going on. There's battles all the way up and down the field, actually. It's kind of fun. The battle certainly for AM classes continuing. And other battles further back between, who was that heading into turn 1? That was Damon Oakey just making a move there on the number 33 car of Cameron Castles.
And one of the interesting things is you see right now the AM class is not so far away from the pro guys, 5th and 6th. With these penalties issuing, it can move guys like Deans and Hardwick up in the standings.
Okay, so car 7, 0.6 of a second, 2.9. 8.9 of a second. Car 3-3, 7.5 seconds. Car 4-7, 5.1, 7-1, 2.4, and car 46, 2.7 seconds. And that is 3 times the amount of time that they were short on their pit stop time, Jeremy. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct, yeah.
That's why there's some odd times there.
Yeah, it makes it awfully difficult to keep a track of things there, but what it certainly does mean is that the number 1 car is looking good here out in front. The question then is whether the number 50 car can overhaul the number 29. He's certainly getting a lot closer. The Eduardo Piscopo was a little bit quicker again on that lap than Coy Lewis. He's got that gap down now to 2.1 seconds. It was 5 seconds, but with a number 29 car has a 0.9 second penalty.
And 15 seconds.
Oh, and 15. I forgot about
from the start of the race.
Of course he did.
Yeah, so that's going to knock that car down. Now, my interest is though whether Eduardo Piscopo can get close enough to the Spinelli car to take second overall when all of the accounting is done at the end of this. We have PricewaterhouseCoopers will be in to work this out for us at the end. Got the spreadsheet running.
And this is
That's just bad teamwork, in fairness.
This is a perfect example of where execution has to be key. You see these cars are running within tenths of a second every lap. The fastest laps between the two are less than half a tenth apart. So you can't afford to give up anything in a pit stop via a penalty. And the issue is that these teams are trying not to go too far over the limit and give away a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. But then you get the penalty at the end, and it makes it difficult on either side.
So the Spinelli car is going to get a 2.4 second penalty assessed post-race. So Piscopo is about 5 seconds away from taking second position.
Oh yes, okay, fine. Yeah, because he's about 7.5 seconds behind him at the moment.
Yeah, exactly so.
You see a really good battle we've had here for the last couple laps between Oki.
Yeah, Damon Oki in the blue and yellow.
Yeah, trying to find a way past Cameron Castles. Unable to do so.
He looks like he has the better car right now, but Cameron's doing a good job of not giving anything up to him, not making any mistakes. And I think, if Oki can continue to stay close and just hound him, maybe an opportunity will present itself. But he's been on his bumper for a few laps now.
This is a circuit that I've noticed in the races, all of the races this weekend, Brian. This is a circuit that you don't have to do very much to defend. Just coming half a car's width in from your entry point to the corner. Obviously it tightens the corner up a little bit, but it just discourages anybody going down the inside, and they can't get the run through the corner to out-drag you on the exit. About the only place you can't do that is the S's. You've got to really just drive the line there. Oh, Oki very close to the wall coming out the final corner. But it's not as if you have to make the big, ostentatious move down to the inside to block the inside of the corner here.
No, you don't. And one of the things about that is a lot of these corners are over 90 degrees. And so you find that as the car on the outside, if you give yourself a little bit of a radius, even if they can stick their nose in, you can hang on the outside and not give up the actual track position. Whereas the 90-degree corner, if they're able to show a nose, you don't get that same momentum run on the exit.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to be as deliberate with your defense, say here, as you would someplace else.
Which actually means it doesn't cost you quite as much time, and that's why we've seen in races here in the past that although you might have 2 or 3 cars battling for position, the guy in front doesn't get the normal advantage of firing off into the difference.
And I'm not sure that anyone has told Trent Hinman that they have this race in control, because he continues to set fast laps and go purple in different sectors,
Brian,
and he's on it.
I'm looking at you as a racing driver. Do you even hear those messages when they say, you've got 7 minutes to go, Trent, just stroke it home from here? The car feels good underneath him. The Pirellis haven't had as much use as we mentioned earlier on with the yellow flags. He's just enjoying himself at the moment. He's a racing driver doing what racing drivers do.
Well, to be honest, the real question is does this mean he has more left if he needs it? Because I think in this situation, as the driver, you absolutely have no choice but to listen to the team. If they're telling you need to be smart here, you have the race in control. If you make a mistake, that's basically unacceptable.
Just
we've got a change for the AM class lead. We've seen
yes.
Ryan Hardwick on that lap move ahead of Brian Thenis. Where that happened, I'm not quite sure. It was certainly somewhere early in the lap.
Sheena Monk and the Laura Spinelli car got together a while ago. That incident has been reviewed. No further action, NFA, for that one, deemed as a racing incident. Thanks to race control for passing that on. We often see that something is being investigated. It's good to know that that has been gone through. And we're working on a new system here, so thanks to everyone at Alcamel and Race Control for giving us more information than I can possibly process at the same time. But more is good.
Yes.
I like that. That's where we're getting the information from the pit penalties for as well.
And my guess would be when you look back at that incident, Race Control looks at that and says maybe Sheena made a little bit of a late move and perhaps the other driver could have left a little bit more room, Spinelli, and it could have been avoided. So they decide that there's equal fault there and they let it go.
Warning for Trent Hinman at turn 8, track limits. Now that he doesn't need.
Well, he set the reason for that is he set a new fastest lap on that last lap as well.
With
so
the fastest third sector of anybody, so he gained an advantage.
Which might well get taken away from him, although he actually also has a fast lap in any case. But he's certainly got to be careful here. He doesn't want to get any more penalties. There's been an awful lot of penalties handed out in this race.
And you can see the car wiggle as he comes into the outer loop here. I mean, he's definitely not laying off. There's not any more left. He's giving it everything he has.
Last 5 minutes. He is having fun.
There's a big smile on that face.
There's nothing better than leading a race and opening a gap.
Yeah. Yes. And a beautiful surroundings. Not that he'll be considering those and taking too much note of those. That there was a heavy rain storm earlier in the week and the grass has greened up beautifully. The surroundings at Watkins Glen, always impressive, and even more so this weekend for the very popular Sealands 6 Hours at the Glen meeting. That's the IMSA sanctioned series weekend that we're at here for the second race of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series, round 4 on the 2018 season, and it looks to be going the way of Trent Hinman in that number 1 car. He is bringing it home after a good first stint by his teammate. And meanwhile, the 09, Damien Oakey, recovering from a drive-through for speeding, 9 kilometres over the speed limit. And he is back now into 4th in AM, 9th overall. Have had incident for William Hubble in the number 10 car early on. Cold tyres, spun the car coming out of turn 10. And if you're wondering why we haven't been necessarily mentioning the car that Shinji Mishimi drives, he's normally at the sharp end of the field. That car had a puncture with side-by-side contact early on and had to come back to the pit lane.
Yeah, and also last time around it had another problem coming down the pit straight very, very slowly, but I think it's now back up to speed again. That was kind of weird, not quite sure what happened there.
Right. Good spot, Jeremy Shaw. Into the last 3 minutes, so what, a couple of laps for the leader. Corey Lewis has got Eduardo Piscopo now right behind him. Now those positions will swap because of the penalties that will be assessed on the white number 29, the Lamborghini Charlotte supported car after the race. But Piscopo is not close enough to Spinelli to take away second place.
And that penalty certainly is significant in the championship standings because that was the car that led coming into this weekend with 2 wins at Mid-Ohio, the number 29 car for Change Racing. But after yesterday's race with Piscopo and Taylor Proto in car number 50 winning and Brandon Godovic and Shinji Mishimi finishing 3rd, they're only both 4 points behind.
The pass in the AM category. Ryan Hardwick doing it the hard way, round the outside of turn 4. Brian Thenis maybe making a little mistake coming up through the S's because there was such a speed differential there, Brian. I think there might have been a little wiggle or wobble coming up the hill there for Brian Thenis.
You'd have to think that was the situation because he's still running and still holding on to okay lap time, so maybe he charged a little bit hard into the S's, got out in the marbles a little bit and gave Ryan Hardwick the run through.
It's a real rhythm section of the circuit there. If you get one bit wrong, particularly if it's early on, you're out for the hut section.
Yeah, and it melts the lap time away. I mean, it melts it away. So you have to bear in mind.
Debris, I think, from the number 1 car, sorry Brian to interrupt there, but this is our leader. It'll be white flag next time around. Now, something was on the track, or is there a right rear puncture on that car? Thought I could see the tyre moving around. No, I think it's okay. That would have been a scary moment for Trent Hinman, because I'll tell you now, a driver of his calibre, he'll have seen that debris being thrown up behind him through the, I mean, they're not very big side mirrors, Brian Sellers, but he would have seen that.
Seen it, felt it, heard it. And then so you start asking questions. Guys, I'm not sure. I heard something out of the right rear. Is everything okay? But there's a good chance that he also saw that debris while he was on track as well and couldn't avoid it. As you said, back to the S's, you get offline and you're in trouble. So his options were hit it or avoid it, and hit it was definitely the lesser of the two evils.
A little bit of drama there, and there'll have been a collective intake of breath from the team on the pit wall for that number 1 Prestige car. It looks all right, everything. I don't think that came off that car. I'm pretty certain, as Brian Sellers said, that was debris on the track for someone else, whether it was a little bit of rubber trim or something like that. That's what it looked like. There's a little rubber sort of bib underneath the front of the front spoiler. White flag is out. Spinelli closing in on Hindman. 3 seconds at the line that time around.
Yeah, only pulled a 1/10 of a second on in that despite the fact that Trent Hinman's lap was about 3/4 of a second slower than he had done on a previous lap.
And
so
now Trent knows he has this race in hand,
yeah,
and
he's just going
to bring it home now. At this stage, he'll let the gap close down, doesn't really care if it's 1 second or 5 seconds. He's shown that today he is the guy to beat with fast lap after fast lap, and so now he brings it home and goes home with what will be a good points weekend for that car.
Yes, absolutely right. Hardwick goes through, leading the AM category. Ryan Hardwick, Spinelli will lead the Pro AM category, second overall for that duo as well. That's another good points haul for the 71 car as well. And in LB Cup, the 66 car, despite having a 15-second start penalty, will win that category, because Sheena Monk is the better part of a minute back down
she's
the
already
road.
had a drive-through, hasn't
Correct.
she as well? So,
yes,
and he's been fast as Bretton Meredith. He's done a really good job for his first weekend in the car. Hats off also to Shea Holbrook, by the way, who's carrying on the good work done by Martin Barkey in the first part of the race, and she's hanging on to the tail of Brian Thenis. She's got a lot of experience as a driver, as Shea Holbrook, but she hasn't driven here in 10 years, which is amazing to me.
50 minutes and counting. The clock has run down, the checkered flag is in hand, and round 4 of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series will go to the number 1 squad. Number 1 on the car, number 1 on the timing sheets, and top step of the podium. Trent Hinman brings it home. Spinelli brings home second place overall and the win in the Pro-Am class for the 71 squad. Corey Lewis crosses the line in third, second in Pro for the car he shares with Madison Snow, but that is going to be overturned as Piscopo will get the jump after penalties applied for a jump start and pit lane time penalty violation. So I think that will drop the 29 car down just to 4th position and 3rd in class. Brian Sellers, a thought about the number 1 crew there. You said the word execution, they did it absolutely perfect. One of the few teams in the top half of that timing screen that had no penalties at all. They had pace and they were clean. That's a good combination.
That's a great combination, and I think that's what wins races, that's what wins championships, and so these guys are now in a mode to try and dig themselves out of a hole that they put in Mid-Ohio, and this was a great day for them.
Well, we'll get the full result for you in a moment's time. We have to wait for all of the teams, all of the cars to go across the line, but provisionally, Jeremy, you've done a bit of arithmetic.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It'll be 3rd place, I think, in the pro class for the number 29 car once the penalties are applied, and that will mean, I believe, that the number 50 car will close to within just a couple of points in the overall championship lead and in the pro category. And the difficult weekend that Brian Sellers was referring to for the number 1 car was they had wheel problems with the with all the prestige performance cars, and
Correct.
they pulled out very early in the second race, so got no points at all.
Which is a testament to that program. They've obviously fixed that problem.
Yes, confirmed with the results now coming through to me, and we'll see that reflected on our timing screen at the moment. Top 3 in Pro 1:50.29. So our quick bit of arithmetic has been confirmed by race control. Spinelli, that great run to second place again by the 71 team in the Pro-Am category, and that's another good points haul for them, Jeremy, in their particular category.
Yeah, that'll extend their lead in the Pro-Am category. They took the lead yesterday, came into the weekend 1 point behind Patrick Liddy in the number 47 car, but will leave with a pretty handy advantage.
Yeah.
And in AM, with that win again this afternoon, to 2 wins, a sweep of the weekend for Ryan Hardwick, that late pass on Brian Thenis, that will he took the championship lead yesterday from Damon Oakey and will extend it today. And in the Lamborghini Cup, despite the 2 wins, excellent wins for Brett Meredith, Mark Proto and Paris Mullins will have a commanding lead in the LB Cup points, because primarily Brett Meredith did not contest the weekend at Mid-Ohio.
66, 7 and 88 in the LB Cup confirmed as well, despite that penalty time added for the 66. Still finishes ahead of Sheena Monk in second place. 2:17 and 67, the top 3 in the AM category. Just to confirm the Pro results then, now on the screen for us as well in front of us, is the number 1 wins the Pro category, 50 will be promoted to second because of the time penalties for Corey Lewis and Madison Snow, the 29 car. So your teammate will need a little pat on the back when you see him before the qualifying and race for the WeatherTech Championship. But he took a bit of a chance at the start, almost paid off for him, but not quite.
Not quite, and sometimes those chances are the ones that are worth taking, and sometimes they're not.
Brian Sellers joined Jeremy Shaw and me, John Hindhaugh, for round 4 of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series from Watkins Glen. Another incident and action-packed race. Join us for the rest of the season on IMSA TV and IMSA Radio from upstate New York. On behalf of the whole broadcast team, thanks for being with us, and bye for now.